Some women scream when they find out. Others go silent and start planning. Tonight on the Confession Stories, a wife who offered forgiveness, but used her husband's affair fund to buy the house he thought they owned together. This isn't rage. It's strategy. A story of silence that became justice, and forgiveness that came with a closing cost. You're listening to the Confession Stories, where real voices speak the truths we keep hidden.
They say when you find out your husband's cheating, you either scream or break down. I didn't do either. I just stared at the receipt. It was from a steakhouse we could never afford when we were struggling. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert. Dated on a night he told me he was working late. At first I tried to find an excuse. I even whispered out loud, maybe it was for a client. But then my phone lit up, his iCloud synced message. A woman's text, same room as last time? It's funny, the first thing I noticed wasn't her name. It was the word same. It meant this wasn't new. It meant this had happened before. When he came home, he was humming. Humming. Like the kind of man who'd just been kissed, not the one who'd been caught. He walked in carrying Thai takeout. "Hey babe," he said, "you look pale." I said, "Do I?" and handed him his phone. He looked down, saw the message, and I swear the color drained out of his face faster than the battery icon dropping to red. For 30 seconds, neither of us spoke. Just silence, the kind where you can hear the fridge hum, the wall clock tick, the lie dying in real time. Then came the script. "It's not what you think. She means nothing. You're my everything." I didn't interrupt. I wanted to see how deep the hole went when a man's still holding the shovel. When he finally stopped talking, I said quietly, "Are you done?" He nodded. "Good," I said. "Now I can decide who you really are." He cried. I didn't. He reached for my hand, and I let him, because sometimes the best way to hurt a liar is to let him think you still believe him. I told him I forgave him. I told him we'd work on it. And he clung to me like a drowning man who thinks he found land, when really, he just grabbed the anchor. That night, he deleted messages, photos, everything. He even gave me his phone password again, like that fixed anything. I said, "Thank you," and smiled. But something in me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. I started watching him differently. The way he flinched at certain sounds, text alerts, late-night emails. The way his voice softened when he said, "I'm just tired." Tired of who? I wondered. Me? Or her? One night, while he slept beside me, his phone buzzed again. But this time it wasn't her name. It was a code from his bank. 2-step verification for a transfer. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just watched the numbers glow in the dark like a confession typed in Morse code. The next morning, over coffee, he said, "I'll make this right. I'll earn you back." And I smiled, because somewhere between his words and my silence, a blueprint was forming. I realized forgiveness wasn't a gift. It was leverage. He thought the storm had passed. He didn't know. I was the tide. After the first wave passes, there's a quiet that pretends to be peace. He stopped saying her name, stopped staying late. He even started washing dishes after dinner, like redemption could be scrubbed into stainless steel. One Tuesday, I was balancing bills at the kitchen counter. Mortgage, utilities, the stupid streaming app we forgot to cancel. That's when I saw it. External transfer. $2,000 recurring. Out of our joint checking, into an account I didn't recognize. The memo line said, Ridgeview Holdings. What's Ridgeview? I asked, as casual as weather talk. He didn't flinch. Investment fund, he said. For our future. His voice was smooth, proud, rehearsed, safe. Ridgeview. The same name printed at the top of those hotel receipts. That night, I sat in the blue glow of my laptop while he showered. The house was quiet except for the bathroom fan and the faint tick of the hallway clock. I opened the bank portal. Scrolled. Read every line like scripture. There it was. Transfer rule, $2,000, monthly, day 1. The destination account masked by asterisks, the bank name not ours. I clicked Details. A pop-up flashed. To view, enter 2-step code. My chest didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. I just waited. And like a trained dog, his phone lit up on the nightstand, 6 digits blooming in the dark. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Sometimes the truth is loud enough just by existing. For a week, I said nothing. I watched him pretend to rebuild, watched him kiss my forehead, watched him send money to a place named after the hotel where he'd lied. I learned his rhythm. Gym at 6, emails at 10, transfers on the first business day like clockwork. I started my own rhythm. A folder on my desktop called Home Project, screenshots, PDFs, calendar notes. A spreadsheet color-coded like a quiet symphony, gray for statements, blue for transfers, red for lies. I opened a savings account in my name only. And every time 2,000 left for our future, 2,000 slipped into mine. You seem distant, he said one night, loading the dishwasher like a repentant choir boy. I'm tired, I answered. It wasn't a lie. I was tired of being the woman who waited to be chosen. Thursday, I checked his email while he was at the gym. He'd renamed a folder Investments. Inside, hotel confirmations, wire receipts, and one message to Mia. Our place, Thursday. I've been saving for us. I laughed, but only a little, like air escaping a wound. He was saving for us, too. Just a different us. The first, almost caught moment happened in the dumbest way. The printer spit out a bank statement I'd forgotten inside the tray. He picked it up, squinting. Why is there an account number highlighted? HOA budget, I said, sipping water. He chuckled. We don't have an HOA. I smiled. Then someone should really fix that lobby light. He laughed and kissed my cheek. Some jokes age beautifully. By week 6, my file had grown thick. Uber at 10:47 p.m. with the drop-off pin set to Ridgeview Suites. A driver note, they were laughing. Screenshots of calendar blocks labeled Q4 Sync. I didn't need a private investigator. I had timestamps. Guilt tried to crawl in at awkward hours. When he came home exhausted and said, "Thanks for giving me another chance," I felt something small and bruised wake up in me. Was I cruel? Or practical? I'd make tea, stand at the sink, watch the steam rise like a ghost of the life I wanted. Then his screen would light up at midnight. Ridgeview. The ghost would evaporate. Month 2, I asked about therapy. We could try, I said. A neutral voice might help. He nodded. If it makes you feel better. Not us. You. The next morning, 2,000 marched out again, faithful as tide. I learned to time my own deposits to the hour. 9:02 a.m. on the first business day, a mirror movement. If he ever checked, he'd see nothing new in our joint account, just the steady drain he himself had scheduled. Meanwhile, my balance ticked upward like a private sunrise. The second almost caught happened in our bedroom. He came in while I was on my laptop, the bank portal open in a tiny window. The screen reflected in the black TV behind me, just enough to see a blue graph. "Work stuff?" he asked. "Budgeting app," I said, and closed the lid with a smile that didn't show teeth. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. "I'm lucky you stayed," he whispered. I let my head rest on his arm the way a survivor might rest on a life raft. By week 12, the math was undeniable. $6,000 of his future had traveled somewhere that didn't include me. $6,000 of mine waited quietly where he'd never think to look. I added one more thing to Home Project, a tab called Title. I wasn't sure what address would go there yet. Only that when it did, it would hold one name. He told me once, over takeout and good intentions, that forgiveness is love. Maybe it is. But in my life, forgiveness had become math. A private ledger balancing itself in the dark. And like all good ledgers, it was leading somewhere. The day I realized I had enough saved, it wasn't pride that hit me, it was precision. 12 weeks, 12 transfers, every dollar of betrayal neatly labeled and mirrored in my own account. Thursday, March 14th, Cleveland sky gray, wind off the lake. He thought I had a hair appointment. I drove instead to Cuyahoga Savings, small brick building, coffee smell, banker smiling like trust was her product. I wore the same beige sweater as the night I found out about her. Full circle look. "Good morning," she said. "How can I help?" "Mortgage pre-approval," I answered. Her keyboard clicked like a metronome for revenge. "Joint ownership?" she asked. "No," I said, steady. "Just me." She slid forms across the desk. Disclosures, signatures, fine print that smelled like power. One page read, "Consent to share rate quotes with household members." "Standard," she said. I signed. He would see interest rates, never the deed. My reflection in the glass divider looked almost peaceful, like justice wearing lip gloss. The pen scratched through the final line. "Congratulations," the banker said. I smiled. "You have no idea." Walking out, I could feel my heartbeat in my fingers. Not panic, just certainty. I had turned his affair fund into a foundation. On the drive home, the radio played Fleetwood Mac. You can go your own way. The universe has a dark sense of humor. That evening, he came home with flowers and cheap wine, the same brand she'd once tagged on Instagram. "For you," he said. "New beginnings." I nodded. "Let's celebrate." Over dinner, he talked about vacations, renovations, a bigger place. "I found a neighborhood near Ridgeview," he said casually, testing if the name still cut. I didn't blink. "Already ahead of you," I said, lifting my glass. The keys in my purse clinked softly, tiny bells at a funeral. He poured more wine. "Feels like we're really rebuilding, doesn't it?" I smiled. "Feels solid." Solid like a contract he didn't know he'd signed. Later, while he showered, I opened the folder again. Deed pending, loan approved, closing date in 10 days. Property title, Laura Evans, sole ownership. Every dollar that made it possible had once been meant for her. I almost told him. I even rehearsed it in the mirror, Remember that fund you built for your mistress? You bought me a house instead. But when I said it out loud, it sounded too final, too small for what it meant. So I let silence have the last word. Next morning, he was making coffee. "Can you move some of your savings to our joint account?" he asked. I kissed his cheek. Of course. Then I transferred exactly $1, the price of my last illusion. He thought we were rebuilding together. I was already living somewhere else in my mind. A quiet street with maple trees, sunlight on new walls, no ghosts. Forgiveness looks different when it's financed. It has closing costs and perfect timing. That night, as we climbed into bed, he whispered, "I'm lucky you stayed." For the first time, I agreed. He really was. The morning I moved out, the sky was the kind of blue you only get after a long storm. No thunder, no warning, just light. He was on a real business trip this time. I had checked. I had called the office line myself. I didn't want drama. I wanted a clean exit. I started with the kitchen drawers. The ones that always jam because someone, usually him, shoved takeout menus on top of the batteries. I packed the useful things, the good spatula, the cast iron skillet, 2 mugs I actually liked. I left the souvenir shot glasses and the novelty wine opener shaped like a cowboy boot. Not everything deserves to come with you. Cardboard whispered across the hardwood as I slid a box toward the front door. The house sounded different when you're listening for your last day. Louder, somehow. The fridge's low hum, the distant garbage truck, a bird tapping at the gutter. Even the clock seemed to tick like it knew. In the bedroom, I pulled clothes from hangers with the gentleness of a museum guard. I wasn't angry. I was careful. Careful not to confuse attachment for belonging. Careful not to pack old versions of myself. I found the sweater I wore the day we signed our first lease. I folded it, then unfolded it, then folded it again, small ritual for a smaller grief. The bed looked huge with only my side emptying out. I smoothed the comforter like you smooth a gravesite. On his nightstand, a phone charger curled like a question mark. I set it neatly beneath the lamp. Let the house ask its own questions. I paused in the hallway to look at the framed photo from our 5th anniversary. The night he ducked out to take a call. I remembered how I had smiled then, the kind of smile that keeps a party alive even when the music is wrong. I took the photo down, removed the picture, and put the empty frame back in its place. An honest display at last. By late morning, the front door hallway was a canyon of boxes. Labels neat. Kitchen, bathroom, closet, papers. The last box read, "Proof." Inside, a printed timeline, screenshots, statements, a single hotel keycard from Ridgeview I'd found in his jacket pocket. I didn't take it out to look again. I'd stared at it enough nights for 10 lifetimes. When the movers arrived, I showed them what to load. No explanations. No backstory. You don't owe everyone the chapter titles. The last thing I placed on the kitchen counter was an envelope, folded once. The note inside read, "You invested in something real this time." I set the house keys beside it, one for the front door, one for the garage, one that always sticks unless you jiggle it twice. I didn't write his name on the envelope. He would know it was for him. Before I left, I walked the rooms once more. Living room, the dent on the couch where we watched movies and later watched silence. Kitchen, The tile he cracked dropping a pan the night he told me it was only once. Hallway, the scuff by the baseboard from moving in, the proof we had once planned to stay. At the door, I took one last breath of the air we had shared and let it out like a ceremony. Outside, the day looked new and a little forgiving. I locked the door, then slipped the keys back across the threshold. You keep what you paid for. My new house sat on a quiet street with maple trees and mailboxes that looked like they believed in good news. The paint still smelled fresh. The floors made soft sounds like they were getting used to me. Sunlight pooled in a square on the living room rug, and for a second I stood inside it just to see what I looked like in peace. I set down a single box labeled First Night, sheets, a towel, a mug, a book I'd meant to finish 3 summers ago. I opened the windows, let the house practice breathing. The phone buzzed at 4:12 p.m. His name on the screen. I let it ring. Ring again. Then stop. A text arrived. Please, just tell me where you are. I typed 3 words back. At peace, finally. I called my sister after that. I'm safe, I said. She didn't ask for details. She cried for both of us, and I let her. The first evening light in this house felt like a promise I didn't have to negotiate. I made tea, chamomile, because I wanted something unexciting on purpose. I sat on the rug with my back against an unpacked box and listened to the kind of quiet that follows a war. Not the eerie quiet of waiting. The earned quiet. I slept on the mattress on the floor, under a blanket that smelled like clean cotton and new decisions. I woke before sunrise. For a second, I forgot where I was and reached out to the left, to the space where he used to be. But my hand found empty air and then the soft certainty of my own pillow. I smiled into the dark. Then the light came, clear and simple. Later that week, I drove past Ridgeview. The sign had been taken down. A demolition crew gnawed at the building's bones, sending up plumes of dust that looked almost holy in the sun. I parked a minute across the street, not to mourn, to witness. Even the place that held his lies couldn't stand forever. People think justice requires confrontation. Sometimes justice is a closing signature, an unlocked window, a silence that doesn't ask to be understood. I didn't need a monologue, a courtroom, or a viral post. I needed a deed with one name. Months later, he emailed on my birthday, 2 sentences about hoping I'm well. I hovered over reply for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. Closure isn't a message. It's a decision. On a Saturday morning, I planted herbs in the small garden patch. Basil, mint, a hopeful rosemary that looked like it believed in second chances. Dirt under my nails felt better than rings ever did. I watered the soil slowly, watched the ground darken, watched it take what it needed without explaining itself. I thought about cycles, how destruction and growth share the same address. How sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave with your spine straight and a down payment. He once said forgiveness is love. Maybe he was right. But for me, forgiveness was the deed to freedom.
Some confessions end in apology. Others end in ownership. She didn't burn his life. She bought hers. This was The Confession Stories, where love ends quietly and justice signs its name. If you have a story you've never told, maybe tonight is the night to let it out. Share your confession anonymously at theconfessionstories.com. or send it directly to us on Instagram and TikTok. The Confession Stories. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more real voices and more truths whispered in the dark.